Guys, first of all, and this is probably the king of all the disappointments of 2022 so far, except maybe of Amber Heard, I don't know, we're gonna have to give it to Crossfire X. A game that is actually really great in terms of story, but the actual core of it, which is multiplayer, sucks majorly in literally every single section. Here's ones that are notable, such as bad performance, a lack of content, the bland gameplay, and a bad execution as well. If you haven't tried this game so far, just avoid for the rest of your life. Alright, coming up behind that, it is Gran Turismo 7. I mean, who would even argue the fact that it was the biggest and most anticipated racing game of 2022, and 2021 even. Gran Turismo 7 is indeed a masterpiece. Specifically when it comes to the historical portion of the driving, the gameplay is pretty accurate, diverse, and huge. But at the same time, it has some downsides. So you can't play this game online. Gran Turismo 7 was supposed to be a good return to even fix some past problems of the franchise, which it really didn't. It's a pretty accessible game, though really good for newcomers, not veterans, and if I am being fair, I actually do recommend this game to any racing fan out there right now.
Sweet! Love you too.
You better get it right. Now listen, Steve, don't try to warn anyone I'm here.
Speaking of most awaited games of this year, we have Dying Light 2: Stay Human. Without a doubt, one of the biggest surprises of the past few years in general. I would be a fool not to say that this game feels, looks, and at times somehow even likes to be some sort of a Dying Light first clone. See, Dying Light 2 is without a doubt a bigger and bolder sequel. I actually love the game, I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time, if you've played a zombie game in the past decade, this game is just damn too familiar to be a phenomenon.
Loss is like.
Talking about someone in particular?
She trusted you, and you failed her. I'll be okay.
You'll pay for that.
3 against 1? I like those odds.
Count again.
Sometimes you have to become a monster to stay human.
You're torturing us! You're hurting me!
Nothing could ever tear us apart anyway.
Fuck the plan. We don't know what's up there.
Join us!
Moving on, it's Babylon's Fall. Babylon's Fall, I would say it's definitely an unfinished game in like every freaking way. I don't even know why this game exists right now. The kind of game that entertains you for about a couple of hours if you have come in with some high expectations like me. But nonetheless, it is actually the type of game that does get better as you get used to its flaws and as the story unfolds. Babylon's Fall could definitely use more time to become the game that it should have been, but like I said, it's not a good game, not a terrible game either, and if you like Square Enix's stuff and its action RPGs as well, this one's probably the one for you too. Then there's Rainbow Six Extraction. I would say Extraction is legitimately one of the biggest attempts, to some extent, in bringing over the perfect co-op experience for players. Only problem is that this game has probably just no more than a few hours of actual content. Afterwards, then it's just the same thing over. It is, without a doubt, one of the boldest games in the Tom Clancy series to date, but one that I would say needed to cook a lot more in the oven before making it out. What would I give it? I'd say a 6 out of 10.
Types and various mutations, which we are starting to give names. The Lurker, capable of cloaking itself and nearby Archeans. The Apex, able to summon lesser creatures from the sprawl. I'm concerned about how they can evolve. We'll need to adapt quickly.
The calls from the other world, all are byproducts of a pact bearer's authority.
She's what we call unsettled. There are others like her running around in the mist.
We have, on the other hand, Monarch, which is a Japanese role-playing game at its core, simply said developed by the same team who previously developed Shin Megami Tensei games, hence why it even made such noise when it was first initially introduced to the gaming scene. The thing about Monarch is it is definitely not the best role-playing game, but at the same time one with a lot of interesting ideas in terms of gameplay, huge potential I'd say, and the kind that's taken down significantly by a lack of effort in its graphical quality and its repetitive gameplay.
So you were dragged into the other world after answering a phone call in the mist. How exactly did you...
How did they flee the other world and make it back to here? Is that the question you seek to ask? Oh, woeful overseer.
If you have played any Monster Energy Supercross game before, you probably know what you're getting with a new game in this series anytime. If you are a Supercross fan, I'd say this game is also an easy recommend. It is without a doubt the easiest entry in the whole franchise's lifetime so far for newcomers, and this time around even packed with content. However, in terms of gameplay, I'd have to say it's literally right on the edge of a blade. The game is expensive as hell, and it does so little in the way of new content. But take a look.
Did you see this? Any of this?
I didn't. You're awake!
What? We are emissaries of peace to a people more powerful than any of us can understand or even imagine.
Coming up next, we have The Waylanders, what I initially thought to be a phenomenon, something with a nice story at least. However, well, considering how nice it all does look, in this game you're gonna have to deal with a ton of bugs. With that said, however, Waylanders is actually a solid role-playing game for fans of the genre. Yes, it does feel at the beginning you're playing an Atari game from some like 40 years ago, so keep that in mind before giving it a try yourself. And if you ask me, I'd say, yeah, the Waylanders over here is actually a difficult game to recommend.
We will need to cross all Galicia. It will be a long road full of dangers as we are heading to Ulva's castle.
I don't understand what's happening, but I love it.
Either way, darlings, we need to ally every race and hillfort against the common foe. Come, Torchbearer. We have a world to save.
Moving on to, well, lesser known games of 2022, we have Chocobo GP, which is a blessing and a curse of a game in one, of course. The thing about Chocobo GP is that it actually is super fun. It is enjoyable, smooth, and pretty vibrant looking. All of that, however, kinda depends on how much you are familiar with not just the Final Fantasy franchise, but the amount of interest you've had for Chocobos throughout the whole time. On the other side of the things, however, the game is kind of a cash grab when it comes to just more content, and there is just, if I were to be honest, definitely better games in the same vein where you can invest your time into right now. On the other hand, it's a nightmare. Let me just say, it's definitely a game you wouldn't want to try if you're a die-hard fan of puzzle horror adventure games such as, well, Little Nightmares, I would say. Not even sure, because as you can see, this game is a top-down with actually quite a bit of story to boot. But regardless of how good it might be, the gameplay part of which is what takes the entire fun of it away. It is a bad game, not a terrible one for sure, and it is only available on the PlayStation consoles as of this moment. And last but not least, it's the Postal 4. No regrets. Technically speaking, this game is just so freaking bad that it's actually good. Hilarious, in a way. See, Postal 4 is at its core just basically a downgraded version of Postal 2, which is what basically made the entire series pretty successful to date, and it does it in a way just so bad that it kinda sort of works in a very poor way, I would say. Yeah, it is an enjoyable game if you like goofy stuff, but nonetheless one that needs a lot of work. So.
I regret nothing.
I regret nothing.
I regret nothing. Not you again.
You guys? Wait a minute, are we getting paid for this?